Perrodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD.
Hi, everybody. This is the Safety Doc, David Perrodin, welcoming you to the Safety Doc podcast number 55. I Can't Drive 55, which actually resulted in me getting a ticket back when I was about 17 years old. So, hey, welcome to what's going to be basically the year in review, and also some lessons we learned from Custer's last stand. Some things that are a little, I guess, non-traditional, maybe some observational things that I've made based on Custer's last stand. Because, hey, we are taking a family trip out to South Dakota and into that greater region in summer. And we're going to be visiting the Custer's Last Stand park. And I did some research. Wanted to share some of that with you and just some perspectives on how that relates today. So a few things right away. One is some of you might discover this podcast and my work while searching for Dr. Timothy Ludwig. He's a professor at Appalachian State University. He's an expert in industrial and behavioral safety. Also goes by the Safety Doc. So, hey, too many docs on the block? Well, maybe not. But here's another doc on the block. He's been there before I came on board. So Tim Ludwig, the Safety Doc, he's presented around the world. And believe me, he is the go-to person when it comes to industrial and behavior safety. So we have this arena of safety involving school safety, community safety, and then industrial and behavioral safety. So I kind of hold down the safety for schools and communities, and the go-to person in industrial and behavioral safety is Dr. Timothy Ludwig. You can find him at www.safety-doc.com. Again, www.safety-doc.com. Dr. Ludwig out of Appalachian State. Phenomenal. I've watched his videos. I've read his articles. He is a terrific contributor to the knowledge base of safety. So I just want to make that clarification right away. In case you did find this podcast and you were looking for Dr. Ludwig, I hope you stick around and listen to the Safety Doc podcast, but Dr. Ludwig is over at safety-doc.com. So some anecdotes. We missed a big snowstorm. Was supposed to, all week we're being told, hey, the snowstorm is going to be dropping 10 inches of snow and it's going to disrupt travel and all this stuff. And the pattern significantly moved south. So it is definitely not going to deliver more than an inch or two, which is sad for my daughters. We butt up against Parkland, and there's a sledding hill, and they love to sled. So we're not going to be able to do that. And here we are at December 21st, and really looking at probably a couple more weeks maybe before another snow hits that's going to, get that sledding hill ready. And then, maybe you got 2 months to use it. So I'm glad when they were younger, it tended to be where we had snows earlier in the season and we're able to get out there. But we'll make the most of it. We'll definitely make the most of it. But right now, it's just grass. I can look outside my window and it's just pure grass. We don't have snow anywhere. Which is unusual. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and tell the story of how this time of year we would go, I'd visit my friends in the country, and literally driving to their places, the snow would be about 10 feet under the power lines. You'd have these huge V plows that would come in, and they would push the snow up into these huge piles alongside the ditches. So you couldn't see right or left. I mean, you were looking and all you could see is snow. So you really had to be careful at intersections back then too, because you couldn't see around. But I don't know. It's not that way anymore. but it is something, to kind of look outside, be running, go out at night and I run. And I'm thankful that there isn't snow, because when there is snow, I do add the cleats to my boots, because I've taken a couple spills in the last few years. Everything's fine here with the old safety dock. But, I'm older, and I don't want to end up with a broken bone or anything like that. So I've learned to roll. Well, I learned a long time ago to roll. When you fall, you try to get into a roll position to dissipate the energy of the fall. I learned that playing basketball years ago. Years ago, like elementary basketball. But I did that a few times when I fell out running in the last couple of years, and it worked fine. I also typically run in a pretty heavy wool coat. It's actually an authentic Navy pea coat. So when I do go out running, if I do enter a roll position, I'm typically in pretty good shape. But my goal isn't to wipe out. So I did obtain some pretty hefty cleats for my they're winter, not actually winter boots. They're kind of like just industrial boots, but I use them and throw the cleats on and an extra pair of socks, and I'm fine. But I haven't had to do that yet. And actually, I kind of like that. I was thinking last night I was out running, and I miss going past. We have a small lake, and there's some ice shanties out there. And when you run, I typically run later at night, 10, 11 o'clock. And when you run at that time, it's really peaceful. It's very peaceful. There's not a lot of traffic, and on clear nights, of course, the stars are visible. But it's really, there's something special about running past this lake and seeing these ice shanties out there. And sometimes they're lit up, and sometimes they're not. It's only, it's something, you can only have your ice shanty out there for maybe 8-10 weeks tops. Because right now it is the 21st of December, and the lake isn't frozen yet. So by the time you can get your ice shanty out, now it's cold, and it's going to be like 10 degrees on Christmas and the next day, and colder in the evening. So obviously, you're going to have some ice forming on this lake. But really, even if first week of January, you get your ice shanty out, I think you have to have it off the lake by March 1st. So you have a pretty narrow window. So I don't know if you're going after work, spending time in your shanty or on the weekends, but it's pretty narrow to do all that work of dragging your ice shanty out there, setting it up and fishing. So I don't know. I've never been in an ice shanty. Admittedly, the safety doc is telling you this. I've never been in an ice shanty. But again, it is something very special, kind of to just go by this quiet area and to look out and to see the ice shanty and even going out with the cleats. I don't know. I find something very reflectful, a lot of introspection during those times. So I look forward to that. And I bundle up, and I'm actually ordering a new Smart Wool heavy hat. I do already have quite a series of hats that I put on in head coverings to keep me warm. And I have these really industrial, like North Pole gloves that I wear, which I think are good to like 20 or 40 below. So my hands are always warm, which is nice. And I do, I'm pretty warm when I go out, but it just is special. It's very special to go out. I want to do a podcast when I go out running. I want to use my H4N Pro and keep it in the front pocket of my jacket, and use one of my mics, one of my lavalier mics, and bring it up onto my coat. And I don't think I have a lot of noise from the wool coat, so I'm going to give it a try sometime. Now, I won't take a camcorder because at night you're not going to see much anyway. I don't know how I would do that. So I'd probably have to snip some photos in during the day of some of the picture of places I've gone and say, like, I'm running past, like, the water tower, or like, past the lake or something like that, and give you some image of what that really is. But I think it would be kind of neat to do. I'm going to try to do that this year. So a few things. One is the show has fully migrated to Podbean. So yes, the Safety Doc podcast is on Podbean. No longer on SoundCloud. SoundCloud did downgrade me to the free account, which means I think I have the latest show is still up there live, which is a couple shows ago. And I did a brief farewell of like 5 minutes saying, hey, I'm leaving Safety. I'm the Safety Doc show is leaving SoundCloud. So I have really, really enjoyed being on Podbean. And I have to say, flat out, without a doubt, Podbean was absolutely wonderful with their live chat and then their tech support as I made the migration. They answered any questions I had. I created some weird loop system because I posted my RSS feed for Podbean like back into SoundCloud before the migration was done, and then it was really like the shows weren't appearing, and it was just really bizarre. My fault. But you know, I contacted the tech support immediately on SoundCloud. They have live chat, and there's like, here's what you've done. Just go in and correct it this way. I did it. And they've been super helpful. Podbean, migrating to Podbean was super easy. And their tech support is awesome. The analytics are incredible. I had some question on, I got into Podbean with a free account years ago. So basically, you know, like you could search for my podcast and it would show up on Podbean, even though it wasn't hosted there. But then once I got subscribed to Podbean, both of the shows were showing up. And then I asked if they would delete the one that was the free one, and they had to do a ticket for that. And literally in 2 hours, like I got an email back from one of their tech people saying, hey, we deleted this other account for you, which was really cool. It's the other part of like, they're not saying to you, like, here's how to go in and do the steps of deleting it. They're like, no, we just took care of it for you. Podbean's been great. The analytics are awesome. SoundCloud was very sketchy. I never knew really how many people download it. It's really designed more for rappers and for musicians to serve that purpose, not for podcasters. You can tell Podbean has an emphasis on serving the podcaster. So I've been very satisfied with Podbean. I did go there per the recommendation of a very close friend who I knew studied numerous hosting opportunities before he went to Podbean. I've been fully satisfied. So thank you, Podbean, for all of your assistance in getting the Safety Doc on Podbean, which I appreciate. And then in Podbean, another plus, you can tell which, people from which states, what kind of systems they're using, are listening to your material. Very helpful because I typically do a lot of my consulting, a lot of my work on the West Coast, and that's really where my audience was showing up. And of course, I'm on the 405 media, and I could tell from the 405 media that I was getting a lot of residual out on the West Coast. So again, Podbean, thank you so much for the help in the migration. The show is officially on Podbean. Very glad about that. So, and hey, you should be glad about the Safety Doc podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc podcast.
What in the hell was that all about?
And we're back. Okay. So this is our kind of, end of the year podcast, and I've really got it down here. I'm going to show you for everybody enjoying the visual part of this on YouTube. We've got it down to one page. It's going to be a little more informal today. And I do have some very significant interviews coming up after the first of the year, including Sean Iams Fuller. Sean and I have been in contact of trying to get something scheduled here within the next week or two. Danny Woodburn, who was on Seinfeld 7 times and has been just in numerous movies. A tremendous person is going to be coming on. So we have all of those things to look forward to. But let's talk right now about 2007. So a few things, some anecdotes. One is I visited my aunt, my 83-year-old aunt this week. I drove up and spent a day with her. She is a wonderful woman, and I enjoy my time with her. And I took her to pay her property taxes, so that was a big thing. She got her property taxes. She doesn't drive, and we drove to pay her property taxes at City Hall. Now, the funny part of this is she assumes I know the city she lives in, which is about twice the size of the city that I live in, and I don't know this city. Like I know where some of the big places are. Kind of like some landmarks, but so when we leave to pay the property taxes, and granted I have a Garmin, so if everything goes bad, I could just type in the address and find my way there. But I kind of know it, but I don't know it that well. But it's funny. It's not only my aunt that does this. It's like my mom too. And this is like, well, this is the way you go to get to this or this or this. I'm like, I don't live here anymore. Like I don't know. And for my aunt, it's kind of funny because I'm like, I didn't grow up here. Like, I don't know. Like, when I visited here, I was a kid. It was always in the back seat of my parents' car. And I wasn't paying attention to any roads and whatever. But kind of funny. So I did find my way pretty quickly around to their City Hall, which was very clearly marked. Thank you for the City Hall of doing that. Yeah, big signs on both sides. This is the City Hall. And then we went in and took care of her property taxes and drove around a little bit and found our way back home. It was a wonderful day. It was like in the low 40s. So it was really nice weather to just get out of the car and to go in and to pay property taxes. And we ate at Arby's, which is a place that she likes to eat. And I really enjoy spending time with her. It was interesting because my godfather, which was her husband, he's passed away. He was grew up in Mexico into New Mexico on a family farm, on a family ranch. And I asked her because we saw the movie Coco. So with our kids, we saw the movie Coco, and I asked, did he believe in and not even believe, but did he celebrate the Day of the Dead? Because that was pretty prevalent in the movie Coco, which largely involved putting up pictures of people who had passed in your family and then lighting a candle. And on the Day of the Dead, the thought is the spirit of that person could travel over for one day and spend time with the living. And she said, no, he didn't subscribe to any of that stuff. So it was good though, because I didn't know what his traditions were, and she talked more about his traditions and family traditions, and I appreciate that. She's such a wonderful historian, and I learn a lot about my heritage when I can sit down and talk with her. So that was a great time for me. It was a wonderful day, and she's a terrific person. I really appreciated that time. So, I go back to October, and my youngest daughter and I went to fire prevention week when they had the open house for the fire department here in our city, in which they do a really good job. They keep up the equipment really well and do a lot of community service things, but I remember asking one of the firefighters, like they have a new truck. Well, it's like 3 years old, but I mean, still call it a new truck, because really a fire truck will last you 20 to 30 years if you take care of it. And he was showing me, he's like, hey, we got a brand new truck I want to show you. And basically it was a pickup truck with a light bar on top. And of course, some things in the back. But I'm like, dude. Like, I used to be a firefighter. I'm like, this is a pickup truck, okay, with a set of lights on top. Like, show me the real fire truck. Like, I get it, okay? Like, I get it that this technically counts as a piece of firefighting equipment. Nothing against it. I mean, this is the piece that you're taking out. You're doing your surveys of buildings to make sure that they're compliant with safety codes and stuff like that, and brush fires. But I'm like, show me the real truck. He's like, okay, like here's the real one. But I'm like, a pickup truck is not a fire truck. So I've personally made a commitment to working out, to lifting weights, and to running. I had done that sporadically, but I really wanted to get back into the shape that I was in 2014, which was phenomenal. And I have the photos to prove it. I mean, I was just in great shape. Had lost a lot of weight, had gained a lot of strength. I am really looking forward to biking this upcoming summer, and I'm going to have new rims put on my bike. I do have a higher end Trek bike, and the rims, I mean, I've had the bike 5-6 years, so the rims only last so long, and then the tensions between the spokes and everything, kind of get a little bit goofy and wonky. So I'm having new rims put on, which I'm excited about. And I love the bike. I absolutely love the bike, and I love my 70 to 80 mile bike treks for fitness and just the sunny days and just being out. Those are things that I will miss when I'm no longer able to do those. And at age 46, and with good knees and good ankles and good back, I hope to be able to do that for many years to come. But yeah, I've been working out. Lifting my weights, doing my bands and all of that stuff. Got the weight bench. So in good shape, and I've been out running at night, and that's been great. I need to continue that so I can really enter that April, about when the snow's gone and after I get the bike in and get the new rims and everything, and really get out and start pushing it really hard like I did back in 2014, where I think I probably got in, between 25 and 35 rides that summer. I want to get back to that, and I can't wait to do that. And so I just have some personal goals on that. I did eat some beef jerky from my one of my bags, my saddle bags on the back of my bike. And I'm not sure when the beef jerky expired, although it was sealed, but I did eat it yesterday. So not having really any ill effects of it, but I'm trying to up the protein. So also this whole thing of, like, I've bought the steel cut oats raw, which I add into my cereal. I always eat kind of sardines every night regardless. I'm into that. I love the taste of sardines and eat those with whole wheat crackers. And sardines are great for you. If you haven't looked it up, look it up, check it out. Sardines are excellent for you. Great source of protein, selenium, and all of that stuff. So yeah, sorry about that, but it's really great. It's really great. And I've been, added some wheat germ tonight and, stuff like that. We went Walmart shopping. So really, really looking to changing up some of the diet things and adding more calcium in. So yeah, I'm excited about that, calcium and protein. So, I want to be really ready by the time that the summer hits, because again, we plan on going out to South Dakota and generally out in that area. And I want to be able to be very strong and robust as I'm out there hiking. Now, the tricky part of the South Dakota trip is getting my girls to be interested. I mean, they're 7 and 11. We went to Disney last year. Of course, if you're 7 and 11, you're going to Disney. It's completely awesome, as it was for me. And I mean, it was a great trip. Absolutely loved Disney. Disney Orlando. But it's a harder sell to your daughters to get them to go out to Mount Rushmore and bison, and maybe getting to pet a prairie dog and seeing some of the Native American ruins and stuff like that. That's a harder sell, okay? No doubt about it. That's a harder sell. So I'm going to have to work at that a little bit with them. I want to see Custer's last stand, where that took place. That's up in southern Montana. And I think I've got a way to configure all of that. Now, see, this is one of those things where it's like a little bit of is this a vacation for Dad? And in some extent, it kind of is. But I want to make sure I have enough things for my girls to enjoy. Like we're going to go to a dinosaur dig and some of those things, which will be really cool. So I've got some of it planned out. And I do want to thank DT and the Black Brigade, blackbrigade.com. Thank you for DT and the Black Brigade. He went out to South Dakota, and he has 2 daughters. Detailed out his trip and also kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like what was really good, what was really bad, what he wouldn't do again. And I've taken some pointers from that. I also love listening to his podcast, DT and the blackbrigade.org. And as I go on, right now, I want to thank Sprigeo, S-P-R-I-G-E-O, Sprigeo.com. You can see him in the back here if you're watching the video version of this, Sprigeo.com, and the signage, S-P-R-I-G-E-O, the nation's leader in online bullying, harassment, and threat reporting software. Literally are saving lives and have been credited with saving lives. Joe Bruze is the CEO and is always looking to make his company better and more responsive to the ever-changing needs of districts and students. I very much appreciate working with Sprigeo and encourage parents who are listening to this show to question their school about what are you doing for reporting for safety. If students have bullying concerns, harassment, or safety concerns, what is your system? And there's a very affordable system out there, Sprigeo. It's very tried and true. Just check the state of Oregon, which uses it exclusively, Sprigeo.com. Can't say enough good about it. I've known Joe, their CEO, for maybe 7-8 years. He is a phenomenal person and just wants to make this better and to protect students and communities. And Sprigeo is just got a wonderful future ahead of it, SPRIGEO.com. Also, thank you to John Grant and the 405 Media out of Los Angeles, California. This show is broadcast 2 p.m. which I just said 2 p.m. PST daily on the 405media.com out of Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles, California, the 405media.com. It is the League of Extraordinary Podcasters. Hey, if you listen to the Safety Doc at 2 p.m. PST, you can hang on an hour later and listen to Aaron Clary, a.k.a. Captain Capitalism, and listen to the world of economics with the rhetoric removed. I listen to Aaron, and Aaron is a friend of mine, and I really appreciate Aaron's perspectives. You can also go to Aaron's Amazon affiliate site here for Christmas, and you go to captaincapitalism.blogspot.com, and you can check. Basically, it doesn't cost you any more, and Aaron gets a commission based upon your sale. But Aaron Clary and the Clary podcast, strongly recommend that. Also recommend Readily Random, which is now on the weekends on the 405media.com. Larry Roberts, true professional. Larry gets the guests that then I talk to Larry and say, how in the world did you get those guests, Larry? But he's just great. He's a voiceover, a professional actor and voiceover and so much more, and just a great friend. Larry Roberts, Readily Random. These are podcasts I download. Like I go to and I always check, hey, there's a new episode of Readily Random. Boom, I'm downloading it. I'm listening to it on my commute. Readily Random, Larry Roberts. So readilyrandom.com. So, yeah, let me take a look here back at 2017. But the first thing we have to do is look right now at the Safety Doc podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
Ho, 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 ho! What in the hell was that all about?
All right, and welcome back. This is the end of 2017, and we're going to look at some of the hallmark interviews, some of the highlights of the Safety Doc Podcast, as we are in episode 55, and we have a full year of podcasts to look back upon. I want to hit some of the most, I think, significant podcasts for the show. I'm sure I'm leaving a few people out. I'm sorry to do that, but I want to go back and highlight just a few of the very substantial podcasts, which I think brought this show to a new level. The first one was with David Hyde. David Hyde is a blind man. You know, he's about 60 years old, and he has been blind his entire life, and talks about what it's like to be blind. He's a professional. You know, he's been employed his entire life. Just a great, dynamic, fun interview if you go back and listen to it. It was an interview, though, that brought about people saying, I really connected with the story. I had a lot of response from that. And people, you know, like, it was great, it was positive. And also people saying, like, I really felt sad for some of the stories that Dave was telling, because we talked about some of the struggles, you know, like he had been hit by a car crossing a road and stuff like that. But it was one of the best interviews I think I did. I really enjoy working with Dave. I worked with him to this day. He's a good friend. So the David Hyde interview. Bree Hansen talked about international travel and how to stay safe and things that I didn't even know were out there, and had some very fascinating stories, like breaking up a bar fight when she was like 19 years old in New Mexico, or in Mexico. And she has made several trips to Haiti, humanitarian aid trips. But Bree is an international traveler and a person, you know, just with a wonderful heart, doing the right thing. That was a super interview. So please go back and check that out. Thomas Marchetti, a detective, retired detective, Thomas Marchetti, talked about sanctuary cities. And since that interview, that was kind of the last interview I did with the old technology here in the Safety Doc studio, which is, let's check out the North Star weather dial right now. It is a brisk 57 degrees here in the studio. It's only going to be 10 degrees here on winter, or on Christmas, by the way. But anyway, I recorded that interview, and it was the goofiest thing because it was the old days. Like, I didn't have Skype phone call and my 8.4N, recorder and things like that. So I didn't have the high-tech stuff. So what I ended up doing is setting up like a number of notepads and having a speaker, and Dave would call in, and then I would have it out of my phone, and it would play, and then it would record into the microphone. Excuse me.
What in the hell was that?
The quality wasn't the greatest. I mean, it's so much more evolved since then. It's early days of the Safety Doc Podcast. But what a wonderful podcast of understanding what a sanctuary city is. I want to have you back on the show because I want to learn more about what's happening with sanctuary cities. But it's very informative. It was to know what a sanctuary city was. It wasn't to take a position saying you should be for or against a sanctuary city. It was just saying, here's what a sanctuary city is, and here's what, you know, the governmental role in that is. And I thought what was really amazing in that I took away was it was really hard to deport criminals because the countries wouldn't take them back. So the United States, he indicated, had much more success in that in the last year, saying, hey, this criminal's from your country, you're taking him back. And they would. So Sorry, I'm not sick. I'm fine. It's just like the humidity down here has dropped, and I just drank my water, so I'm pretty much set. But a thank you to Aaron Clary. I interviewed Aaron Clary, and we talked about his book Reconnaissance Man, and I did a review for that on Amazon.com. Reconnaissance Man. Basically talking, Aaron wrote this book, and we talked about the importance of youth reconnaissance, meaning 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, getting out and trying to explore different parts of the U.S., learning about here's what it is in Colorado, here's what it is in New Mexico, and things like that. And the key that Aaron had in that was saying, you're not, you don't, if your interest is mountain climbing or trail climbing or biking, you grew up in Wisconsin. Aaron grew up in Wisconsin, so did I. Maybe Minnesota or Wisconsin isn't the place for you. Maybe you want to go down to areas where you're going to be able to do that. And it was a very insightful book, Reconnaissance Man. And I talked about that a little bit in a recent podcast of saying, with these virtual field trips and people canceling field trips to like DC and things, parents, because, it's too dangerous for my kid, my 8th grader, to go there. Well, that really goes against this reconnaissance, this need for reconnaissance, which Aaron points out in his book. And I believe it's very true. I think I was 19. I did spring break with one of my friends. We went to Little Rock, Arkansas. Why you'd go there for spring break, I don't know. But it was a great time. It was, we had to improvise, and we had to come up with a lot of solutions along the way to different things that came up. But I learned different parts of the country. And really, it wasn't until we went to Disney where I drove through, and first time was in Alabama and Tennessee and even Florida. But reconnaissance, learning where you might want to go to school, where you might want to live, what you like for climate and things like that. So important. So I appreciate that. That was a great discussion with Aaron Clary. One of the things Aaron pointed out to me, which I'll never forget, is I was looking into this a little bit deeper. I was like, how kids might do reconnaissance and all this, all of this, and how, if they're out doing reconnaissance, like, should they stay on social media and keep reporting what they're doing? Because are they really then doing reconnaissance or just still connected to social media? And Aaron stopped me and he said, Dave, the big thing here is like that they're out. We have to get them out, that they're encouraged to be out and doing things. And I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about that, so, Aaron has a number of publications out there. One is Poor Richard's Retirement, a guide to retirement right now, which I think is very relevant. But I listen to him through Audible, download his pay for stuff and download through Audible. But Aaron Clary, you can also find him at captaincapitalism.blogspot.com. He is on the 405 Media at 3 p.m. PST daily. I also had an interview with Elijah from Nerdy by Nature. And we had a very lengthy discussion in June about topics such as, what if you could live forever? Would you want to do that, or would you not want to do that? And just some of these dilemmas which will face society, like what will be the impact on religion once we get to a phase of singularity, of meaning like machine intelligence, artificial intelligence is comparable to human intellect. And what if we could technically, replace our body parts and have our bodies upload it every day in 50 years, to a computer system. So if anything happened to us, if you died, for some reason, that you could basically reboot yourself into a new body. What would that mean? So it was very interesting. I appreciate that conversation with Elijah. It is a phenomenal podcast. I encourage you to go back and find that one. Katie Pachon from the Cajun Navy Relief. Back when the hurricanes, Irma and Harvey and Irma, I guess, were hitting Houston and then also hitting Florida, the Cajun Navy jumped in Houston, not necessarily in Florida, but then also they got into Puerto Rico. But I didn't know anything about the Cajun Navy, and I guess my initial reaction was that it was grassroots, but it was also people that were very loosely organized, and I didn't realize the level of organization and interorganization of how the Cajun Navy interfaced with FEMA and with local police and fire departments. And Katie did a wonderful job with that. And she was kind of brought into the role of being more of a communications agent, or connecting people who needed resources with resources. And that was a phenomenal interview, because it really pointed out, I think, one of the great aspects of America, of how you can do a lot of things without government interference. And also how the government did help her, like FEMA had supported and interacted with the Cajun Navy Relief. Again, Cajun Navy Relief. That was a great interview. I appreciate that. Think it's worthwhile going back to. It was weird because I released it like within 12 hours of the shooting that occurred from Mandalay Bay. Where 58 people were killed. So it was hard to promote that show. I never felt I was able to give that show the proper promotion it deserved, because it felt like if I was typing out and saying, hey, check out like the great things that people are doing in America to support their fellow Americans, it kind of flew in the face a little bit of what was happening in Las Vegas. So it was just bad timing for that to come out. But that's a great show. And the Cajun Navy Relief, and yeah, it's definitely worth a listen. It's one of those things that is restoring of humanity. It recharges the batteries. I mean, these are people who are not getting paid to do this. They're going out, and like Katie herself has pictures where she's working on ripping people's rotted drywall out, and she's got a mask on, and her and a crew. And this is like months after, 12 months after the, storms have hit, or Louisiana, floods have happened and things like that. So just a really good person, Katie Pichon, and then the Cajun Navy Relief. And a special thanks. I want to give a special thanks to Hector Solis and Larry Roberts, who have been significant contributors to the Safety Doc podcast in 2017. One, Hector Solis has a role in the Typical Daddy podcast and the Awareness podcast, and he is what I would say a true citizen journalist, and learns the technology and all of the aspects of great audio quality, and it was funny because the way Hector contacted me is he said, I like your show, but your audio I think can be better, and I'd like to help you with that. So he offers his help, and he thanked me. I contacted him, and we set up a Skype session, and he quickly gave me a number of pointers and things that significantly increased my audio quality. I have a little bit of things I want to do here, like I need to get some reverb tiles down here in the office, and maybe some other things. But and of course I have my H4n Pro, so I want to start using that and with a webcam and changing some things. But Hector thanked me, which was phenomenal. I mean, this guy is awesome. He is a tremendous person, incredibly giving. He did like this full tutorial with screenshots for me on a number of things, but just out of the goodness of his heart, he's just a good person, and his shows are so insightful. He's done shows on bullying, on sex trafficking, and then on Typical Daddy podcast of just common things that dads encounter with, communicating with your sons or daughters, and how to keep those lines of communication open from being young to being middle school to being older. So he's just one of these people who is value added to the world, I would say, Hector Solis. And I'm very thankful to have him as a friend. He's helped me out tremendously. So thank you so much, Hector, in 2017. That's one thing with podcasting is I really found this community of people who are very giving, very knowledgeable and skilled, and I love it. And I try to give forward. Like somebody once had asked, do you do an outline for shows or whatever? And it was a website I was a member of, and I shared some of my outlines and, redacted some information. But I said, yeah, I typically do an outline of a show. So, the guest and I have general topics. We know what to expect, and here's how I do it. And that person found that helpful. Not meaning like we had to stick to these things, but, here's some general points. So Hector, thank you so much. And as a friend, you've been incredible. I wish you and your show the most success. Check it out at Awareness Pod on Twitter, or just go to awarenesspodcast.com. Hector Solis, you will not be disappointed. Also, Larry Roberts of Readily Random. ReadilyRandom.com. I did an interview with on Larry's show early on. Larry has tremendous guests. Again, a true professional. He's a voice. He does voiceover in addition to all of his other work, but wants to produce something that is going to help people. And again, I go in and I look and I'm like, has Hector released anything new? Has Larry released anything new? And if they have, I download it and I listen to it. And typically on my commute, if not my commute, I just listen to it because it's great. It's always great. They have terrific guests, or else they've done their research and they present stuff, which it just helps me become a better person. And these are two great people. Hector helped me tremendously with my audio as I was starting out the show. So we're on 55 podcasts. This is before the Yeti mic and before, the software, Auphonics and some of that. And Larry helped me upgrade website and graphics and things like that. So I am indebted to these two, Hector Solis and Larry. Check out Awareness Podcast with Hector. Check out Readily Random with Larry Roberts. So, yeah, this summer, my family and I were doing a South Dakota region summer trip. Last year we went to Orlando, and then in summer we also typically spend some time up in Door County, Wisconsin, in the Fish Creek region. It's really neat up there. In summer you see people bring out their sailboats, and when it's warmer, it's just really nice. This time of year I'm like, boy, I wouldn't want to live up there, but in summer it's really cool. And they have a lighthouse we visit that is 120, 30 years old, and you get to climb a steel spiral staircase all the way up to the top. And our girls are all tall enough now they can do that. And you get to walk around the outside of it, and then you get to go down, but you can look out on Lake Michigan for miles. It's really, really nice. It's a great area, Door County, Wisconsin. Probably about an hour and a half north of Green Bay. It's on a, kind of, I don't know if you call it the peninsula or whatever, the arm of Wisconsin. So the arm that says, hey, I'm Wisconsin. So, but yeah, we're planning our South Dakota trip. It's kind of hard, because I have two daughters. So I'm like, how do I keep them interested in South Dakota trip? Because Mount Rushmore may be interesting. I want to expose them to some of the history of the, of the South Midwest region, the Plains region, I guess you'd call it. Excuse me.
What in the hell was that all about?
So I want to do that because I think it's important for them to have that experience and Custer Park and bison, naturally, and being able to pet a prairie dog and just see some of the land formations out there. I'm looking forward to that, but I want to make it interesting. So there's a dinosaur dig, an active dinosaur dig out there, which we will go to. They can participate in. So that's going to be pretty cool because I think both of them will find that interesting. And I'm really, we can go to Little House on the Prairie. They've read the books and things like that. So I'm trying to make this very interesting for them to. So, ultimately, this is something I've been out there, but I was out there twice. I was out there as a kid, I was 5 or 6, and my parents had a slideshow. Once in a while, they bring out, it's the old slide projector where you got to click. My goodness, I'm sorry, folks. You got to click and it moves to the next slide. My parents would be like, oh, you remember this? I was 5 or 6. I don't remember any of this. You're by the Grand Canyon or whatever. But no, now I remember it. And, yeah, I want to take them out. I want to show them these things. And I am very interested in the Battle of Little Bighorn, or what's known also as Custer's Last Stand. I've done a lot of research on that. It's very interesting too. I mean, because the gravestones are marked where the soldiers fell, although that's kind of not completely accurate. There's a lot of spurious markers, meaning or markers that are false, because the battle was the markers came up, I think, 4 years after the battle, the granite markers. So they were initially wooden markers, and then a lot of the remains have been excavated and moved to different sites. So, I mean, there's some remains, there's some not, but it still is very interesting, I think, to see the battlefield. So I'm looking forward to that. I have to figure out a way to make that interesting for my daughters. It is something more or less, frankly, Dad wants to see, okay? And we're going to a Minuteman missile site where we're going to get to go down into the site and tour, the Minuteman missiles, which were, ready to go up until or through the 1990s. So I've never done that. I've seen the Nike missile sites in California, but not where we can actually go in and tour. So I think they'll kind of find that interesting. But I'm really looking to make this interesting for my daughters. So one of the things that I find fascinating with Custer's Last Stand, this is how I'm going to close out the show here today, is the soldiers who were ages typically 20 to 25. When they would dig up the bodies, it was the at that time largely skeletons, but they would find that the teeth were worn down and the joints were in really bad shape in the vertebrae, from riding on horseback and everything like that. I mean, these people were probably in constant pain and they're fatigued. And, so the 25-year-old soldier of the 1870s, was equivalent to somebody who might be 50 to 60 years old today. So this was a really hard time. And it's also one of those weird things because 1876 is pretty modern. I mean, 1876 New York would have been modern. Chicago would have been modern. Yeah, you get over and you have this really unexpected, decimation of Custer's troops. So, and I wanted, excuse me, folks. I'm really sorry about that. But I want to point it out to my daughters too of, at Custer's Last Stand, that was an attack. There was an Indian gathering and it was more of a ceremony, and then they were defending themselves. But remember, when I was in school, Custer's Last Stand was portrayed as, the Indians that were attacking Custer, and Custer needed to do this to preserve, the country and this manifest destiny. But really, it's a shame that this happened. And the fact that there wasn't some reconciliation, with the tribes and so forth that was held to by the government. And the more and more I research this, the more and more I feel really bad that as a country, we just don't recognize this and more than what we do, that we continue to push Native Americans further and further off of the land and eventually, into Canada or onto small reservations. And this was, again, an attack by Custer and then the Indians of different tribes defending themselves and numerous weapons, and were able to get Custer and his group in a position where they were able to obliterate them. But again, they were doing this in self-defense. I mean, they were attacked in midday. But yeah, I want to go there. I've never been there. I think it's the only time in life. So I got to figure out something of how to get from Rapid City to there in Montana, which is a 4-hour drive, and make it interesting for my daughters. So got my work cut out for me. So in closing here in 2017, I've appreciated being the safety doc. I've appreciated doing the podcast, and I appreciate all of you. You're not the typical audience. You are extraordinary. You're intellectual. You want to have the rhetoric stripped from safety. You want to make your communities safer. You want to make your schools safer. Thank you so much for that. And also in closing, like we really have good times today. We really have good times. Not that we don't have problems, okay? And I don't want to make this political in elections and things like that in society, but you know, I go back to this whole thing with Custer and The Last Stand. You know, you're looking at bodies and you know, guys in their 20s where their vertebrae are shot and all of that. You know, we have modern medicine. You know, you can go to Walmart and typically get your needs met. We have clean water coming out of water taps. You can, you know, get a meal at a reasonable price. We're generally safe. You know, our food is safe. You know, our needs are met. We have incredible medical in the country. You know, first responders, EMS, and all of that. We have a lot of things to be safe, to be thankful for. Vaccinations, things like that. So, I just think we lose track of that sometimes. Of we really live in a great time, and a time when it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money to have these things. You know, like to have water coming out of the tap that's clean, that we can drink without getting sick. And, you know, going to a grocery store and being able to buy things and the variety and stuff like that. You know, and granted, we could argue ideals and things like this, but I'm just saying it is something very, very much that we are living in some of the best times, if not the best time that the world has known, especially from an American standpoint. And I want to point that out. I'm very thankful. I'm thankful I can you know, go grocery shopping and with my family and kids, and I can buy, like, you know, I love sardines. I work out and stuff like that, and they're great. And assorted nuts and all of that, and I'm not spending a lot of money, and all of that stuff is there. And my kids have schools that they go to, you know, with you know, nice you know, equipment, educated teachers that care about them, and things like that. That we have these systems. Again, nothing's perfect, but compare it to, you know, 1876 and where we've come from, and just things like that. Yeah, I think we have a lot to be thankful for. I give thanks when I'm out every night. So, folks, thank you so much for listening to the Safety Doc Podcast. This is David, the Safety Doc, and signing off. Thank you again. I'm not sure if we'll have another podcast for 2017, but if not, thank you so much for 2017. Looking forward to 2018. This is the Safety Doc. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Morning light, when it starts again, the 9 to 5 mundane. You can't wait for the end. You've had a bad day. 6 a.m. and the alarm wakes up. You need your coffee cup. You face the day, choke on your hairspray. Your life is wasting away, then it's just another day. You hope and wish and pray that it's just another day for you. You've had a bad day and nothing's going right. You've had a bad day. You'll be glad for bed until the morning light, when it starts again, the 9 to 5 mundane. You can't wait for the end. Had a bad day, and all of your friends seem to breeze through life. What is wrong with you? Things just don't go right. Life can have some bite, but it'll be alright. And it's just